shifting gears a little bit towards Rune Pool and some of the ideas that are being discussed and thrown around. I mean, I remember the early days, when it was Bet2 and we were able to single side stake, our Rune into a vault and essentially just earn yield, but obviously it had nothing to do with pools. The idea is, as I understand it from Rune Pool, is that you'll single side LP your Rune alongside the protocol and liquidity and savers. Can you explain the concepts, kind of in a way that maybe someone who has no experience with THORChain or, savers or protocol and liquidity might understand?
Sure. So TVL is extremely important. THORChain needs to be able to attract external capital, exogenous capital like Bitcoin, ETH, and stablecoins in order to monetize that. Charge a premium for services. Those services are swaps. Actually, those services are just swaps. Everything else is built around swaps. And the liquidity fees the protocol gains is what pays into the nodes and LPs. So THORChain does not make money if it has $0 in external capital. It needs to attract as much capital as possible and scale that up. Right now, the system is underperforming on the TVL front. It's got excellent security and it's got excellent volume and liquidity. So the team kind of like rotate around between focusing on security, TVL, or liquidity. Right now, once we cross the stability chasm, then the big focus will be on TVL. Get as much in as possible. So the L1 Saver user experience is amazing. You never have anyone ever complaining about the L1 Saver experience, with the exception of in the early days when we were still tweaking out the streaming savers. L1 Savers is amazing. You can just literally rock up with your 10 Bitcoin, deposit it in via Bitcoin transaction, and 6 months later, you can see the yield slowly accumulating. That is the UX that we're trying to achieve here. However, we need someone else to provide the Rune side. To date, that has been POL or dual LP. POL is actually just a giant dual LP, but it programmatically deploys Rune on the other side, depending on the demand of its users. So if everyone's piling into the Bitcoin savings vault, POL will also pile into the Bitcoin savings vault to match. And it's the idea that if for every dollar of L1 capital that brings to the network, we need a dollar of Rune capital onto the other side. So rather than POL running out, there's the reserve. The POL deploys from the reserve. There's about 8 million Rune in the reserve and about 4 million Rune in POL. We want to go back to the simplicity of the Rune Vault version 1 from 4 years ago and allow you to just simply stake your Rune, not stake, but pull your Rune via a single transaction. What will actually happen is that Rune will go into a module, it will eject the reserve POL out, and you're basically one-for-one placing the reserve and kicking that Rune back into the reserve. So now the 4 million POL position is owned by users and no longer by the reserve. Now it won't just be 4 million Rune. I see probably 50 million Rune piling into this giant Rune pool because the user experience will be so easy, so simple, and the value proposition is so easy to grok. This giant Rune pool will then deploy to match saver demand. So as Bitcoin, stablecoin, ETH piles in to access the L1 savers features, the Rune in the Rune pool will deploy to match dollar for dollar. So if you put in 1 Bitcoin of savers, 1 Bitcoin worth of Rune will get streamed into the pool on the other side to match. So that's how the protocol can now scale liquidity up to where it maxes it out. Now, as a user, what do you get? So rather than jumping in in a dual LP position and choosing to wrap your head around all the price curves of what if I add my Rune to the Bitcoin pool and now I got to track the Rune Bitcoin price, or what if I add my Rune to the USDT pool, then I got to monitor like Rune price reflexivity against USD. And are we in a local top or a local bottom or a micro top or a micro bottom? Where are we in the market? So there's a lot of decision making going on right there as you come to this complex protocol, and it's got 30 different pools to add your Rune to. Which one did you add it to? Are you long Rune, short USDT? Are you long Bitcoin, short Rune? It's just a complex cognitive burden. So we're going to fix all that by just saying, now just throw your Rune in this giant module and let the protocol manage it for you. And what that means is actually just Rune versus the world. The aggregate IL across all pools will by definition be less than any isolated peak IL in any peak pool. So because of that, you are actually just accessing the liquidity APY minus the general reflexivity of Rune. Now at 50% synth utilization, we know that the price curve is relatively flat between plus or minus 50% on a change of Rune versus the other asset. So what that means is let's just say Rune is $5, or $4. If Rune goes to $6, there's actually almost no IL. And if Rune goes from $4 minus 50% down to $2, again, there's actually quite a flat curve there. There's no IL due to the synth leverage of at the 50% level. So that means within a plus or minus 50% of Rune versus the L1, the price curve is flat and there's not much IL going on, which is far different to choosing a single L1 pool and depositing Rune there. So as a result, the aggregate IL will be less than peak IL in a single pool. Therefore, you will be accessing the global liquidity APY, which is currently at about 18%, and you won't need to make a massive decision around which pool you're going into. You're just taking a bet that Rune is going to sit plus or minus 50% on aggregate L1. It's so simple. And this module doesn't need to be 4 million Rune. It can be 50 million Rune. And what that means is the risk of being basically underwriting savers just goes down. It just continues to go down as this Rune pool fills up. So it's basically it de-risks the protocol because it kicks out the reserve and now it doesn't need the reserve to underwrite savers. It brings in Rune. As long as the Rune poolers are long-term oriented, that is that they are willing to be around for 6-12 months to see the yield from liquidity fees slowly grind away any IL experiences that is higher than plus minus 50%, then everyone should have a good time. And it de-risks the protocol, de-risks the users, removes the cognitive burden, and basically we can suck in 50 million Rune out of Binance, out of the exchanges, out of all these idle wallets, put it in the protocol where it can be put to use. So there you go. Hopefully that was an answer to most of the questions.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was very comprehensive. You hit upon every question that was coming up in my mind.